Recently, Riot announced the official launch for Legends of Runeterra is coming in the near future. Now you might be thinking, hey, I've been playing Legends of Runeterra for a bit now, so what do you mean official launch? Well, what I mean is they are taking the beta tag off and they are also doing a global launch on mobile. Now, mobile has actually been around for a little bit. They did a limited release in Singapore to get kind of a small test case group. And if you were on like Android, then you could sideload it if you spoofed your location. So you made it seem like you were in Singapore, you could load it that way. But it's going to be a global launch. Now, the date that they are listing is April 30th. However, there is some additional details that I want to share. This was all covered in the article. I will put a link to the article in the video description as well. But essentially on April 28th, we are going to get a brand new set. It's going to have 120 cards that are new, actually 120 plus. We don't know the exact number. The article just says 120 plus. So over 120 cards that are going to be new, including a new region. That's going to happen on April 28th on PC. But when they also push this to mobile, depending on your platform, depending on your region, it can take up to 48 hours for things to kind of propagate and become available everywhere. So they're listing the official launch as April 30th. Now, again, the beta tag is coming off. This will now be a launched game, but this also means that our beta season is ending. So we're going to get a bit of a ranked reset, but you're not going to go all the way to the bottom. The way that it'll work, if you're a Masters player, for example, you're going to lose 800 LP. So you will essentially drop 8 divisions and have to work your way up from there. If you're not quite at Masters, you're still going to experience a drop, but everybody else is going to have slightly less impactful drops. The full like cascading tier chart, if you will, for where you're going to end up is listed in the article. And again, I'm going to put a link to that in the video description. So beta season is going to be ending. We're going to get a brand new region, and I'm going to talk about that more later in the video when I start talking about expansion speculation. And we're live, we're launched, we're an official product as of April 28th. No more beta tag. It's going to be really fun. Now, you may remember during the preview events and during some of their marketing, some of their promotional materials contained this kind of reward, and it was a Moonstruck Poro Guardian. So this is a little blue Poro that you can earn for participating in the beta. They're actually extending that so that if you're part of the initial launch, you can earn it as well. So the update on that is officially that you have until May 7th to earn said Moonstruck Poro. So if you log in, you play, you participate prior to May 7th, you can earn the Moonstruck Poro. After May 7th, they're going to start delivering the Poro to folks' accounts the next day. Can take up to 24 hours for it to show up on your account. You don't have to do anything according to the article. It's just going to show up there, like you'll log in and it will have been magically added to your account. But this is great news because if you're somebody who's kind of been putting the game off until you could play on mobile, or maybe you just don't have access to a PC to play this, and you were a mobile-only player because of hardware situations that you may or may not have, hey, you can earn the Moonstruck Poro. So make sure that you sign in, you participate, you play some games before May 7th. That's the last day you have. So roughly a week after the official launch of April 30th. Now, if you want to see a really cool launch trailer, because they also released that, that's also in the article. I think that it's kind of nice that Legends of Runeterra is starting to get their own cinematics the way that League has had for years. I'm really looking forward to things coming in the future. Now, that's like the official news portion. I want to now dive into the speculation side, because I have done a previous video where I was going through some of the data mined information that was available in like the voice lines portion of the client. And I had thought that we were going to get 2 new regions. I talked about new champions we were potentially getting, the regions we should be expecting, things like that. And so this announcement kind of throws that for a loop, because I really thought we were going to see 2 new regions and we're only getting 1 this expansion. So if you didn't see that previous video, I will also put a link to that video in my description so you can check that out. But essentially, in the data mining voiceover line area, if you will, of the client, there were 24 new champions that had voice lines in the client. And that included 2 new regions represented. Those regions were essentially Targon and Bilgewater. The rumor, the speculation based on previous leaks / previous data mines is that this first expansion is expected to be Bilgewater and that Targon might be coming later. But again, take that with a grain of salt. Could be anybody's guess at this point. But we are only getting one of those 2 new regions. Now, there was also in that information that was kind of plucked through 2 new champions per existing region. But now that we're only getting 1 new region, I personally suspect that we're only going to get 1 new champion per region with this initial set. Now, here's my reasoning for that. Right now in the existing game, just core set base client right now, there are 53 cards per region, and that counts 4 champions per region. So you get 49 base cards and then 4 champions per region. They keep that number constant, right? They want your regions to be equally represented, equally reflected. So if you're only adding 1 new region and you also want to add a champion to existing regions, I suspect that our number is going to jump to 5 for this expansion. So I think we're going to get a new region with 5 new champions from that region and then 1 new champion for existing regions, because then when they do add that second region that was data mined and that takes the number up to 6, they can add the full 6 for that region and then again 1 new champion for all of the existing regions, which would be 7 regions at that point. So if they're trying to keep things equally distributed, it makes sense that we're only going to get 5 of the 6 champions for whatever the new region is and then 1 existing region champion for the other slots. It's an interesting decision because if they continue this going forward, you almost create like a snowball effect anytime that you introduce a region, right? Because we have 2 kind of confirmed, if you will, or at least data mined regions that we expect to get in the near future. 1 for this expansion and then again likely 1 in a following expansion. But that's only 2 new regions, and there's plenty of other regions that can be represented in the lore of Runeterra. For example, we haven't even touched Shurima. There's the Void that could be its entire own region if you want to introduce champions like Malzahar, etc., etc. So if every time they introduce a region, they also introduce enough like champions to keep things even and also introduce new champions to the existing regions so that you give them some flavor, your expansions start to grow every time you do a release. Or the option is that maybe you hit a point where, you know, you cap at 6 champions per region, and then as you're introducing new regions, you focus solely on those regions, and then you get no new cards for the existing ones. But then that's going to make those existing regions potentially feel stale, feel like they are not getting the attention they deserve. So I don't know how their expansion design is going to be going forward. It's very, I don't know, interesting because we don't have all the regions in the game. A lot of times when you have a game like this, the design decision is to stick with whatever your base is. So I'll use some other games as an example, right? Hearthstone for the longest time had a set number of classes. Now I know they're kind of throwing that one for a loop here, but for many, many years, like, the classes didn't change. And when they introduced things like Death Knights, they didn't introduce a Death Knight class because they wanted to keep that number constant. And the same thing was true in the Elder Scrolls Legends. We had a set number of attributes, a set number of combinations, and then as we were given access to Tricolor, in theory that gave us more combinations, but the attributes were still always set. And it was pretty well known that they were never going to introduce another attribute. I know that in Elder Scrolls lore, for example, luck was an attribute in some of the games, and folks, you know, had done custom cards for like, hey, what if they introduced a luck attribute? I say as I kind of slur that word, so my apologies. But usually games don't kind of take this approach because you do run into this, where if you continue to add new, you know, regions, colors, classes, whatever your base thing is for determining a pool of cards, as you add new ones, you get to a point where to continue adding new ones and to catch those up so that they have enough representation to be equal to the existing ones, you either have to leave out the other ones or your expansions scale in size almost indefinitely. So I don't know. It's just very interesting to me how they're doing this, and I would love to hear from the developers what their plan is for future releases, you know, what their cadence is expected to be in terms of set sizes. I also kind of want to talk about themes as well. Now, what I mean by that is that when the game released, I did a video, and I know I've said this a lot in this video, but I'll include a link to that video as well. I did a video that was talking about the overarching themes per region, because you want your themes to have an identity. You want something that says, like, Demacia does this and Ionia does that, right? You want them to feel different. The gameplay experience is still roughly the same with the core rules, but you want each region to feel distinct, right? When I play against this region, they do this well and maybe this not so well. And I did an entire video talking about what the themes were per region, and I also talked about how many regions were like really good at one thing, but then they were also supplemental at other things, and that created this nice mesh where, you know, regions were very easily paired with other regions to create deck archetypes. It's one of the ways that you can kind of train new players or help them with that new player experience for saying, like, hey, if this is the kind of deck you want to play, consider pairing this region with this other region because they do the same things. And I'll give you some examples, right? Demacia, for example, has a lot of things that are very centered around combat. They are kind of home to the challenger keyword. Most of their spells are combat related. They either protect units or they buff units, but they don't have many things that are, you know, targeted removal like some of the other regions do. They don't have like direct damage like some of the other regions do. Whereas you take a look at like Shadow Isles, right? Where Shadow Isles does have, you know, targeted removal with something like Vengeance. But when you start talking about cross themes, Shadow Isles, for example, has a major theme in that it cares about its own units dying. If a unit dies, they get some sort of bonus, or they have many ways to kill their own units to get a benefit as well, whether that's something like Glimpse from Beyond, or even just the card that drains your own units. And then you've got cards like Black Spear or Crawling Sensation, where if a unit died, then you get a benefit. You got units like Cursed Keeper that give you a benefit when they die. So your units dying and you caring about that is very much a central theme in Shadow Isles. That's one of the things that makes that region stand out. But Demacia has that as a sub-theme. So while it's not heavily apparent there, you do still get cards like Dawn Speaker or Radiant or Redeemer, right? These are all cards that if a unit has died, you still get a benefit, and they do reside in Demacia. And again, it's just that design tool where if you're a new player and you say like, hey, I want to build a deck around this, here's your primary region, and then here's maybe a region you supplement it with. And that's true of every existing region. Now, why do I bring this up? Why am I harping on this, you might ask? Well, as we introduce new regions to the game, so again, we're about to get a new one, that region is going to need its own new theme, and it's going to have all new cards that support that theme, but it's also going to have existing cards that play on its sub-theme. So whenever they add a new region, they have to create a new identity and support existing identities, but some identities might get more representation than others, and that's going to be another interesting design hurdle or challenge, because again, it could make some regions feel like they're getting far more attention than others. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's just say hypothetically, like, Bilgewater is the next region, right? It's Bilgewater or Targon. But let's just say that, it's Bilgewater, and their primary theme is something around, like being mercenaries, and it's its own unique thing. But then their secondary theme is something that is, let's just say, complementary to elusives. It shouldn't be that, right? It doesn't make sense thematically, but let's just say that's what it is. Well, then it's going to feel like we got, Bilgewater in this expansion, and then Ionia got a lot of support, and then the other regions they're going to get new cards. They might even get some really powerful cards, but they might not feel thematically as supported until other regions come out that play off their existing themes or sub-themes. For example, again, Targon is one of the other regions that, is one of the two up in the air, right? It's in the data mine. And also in the data mine, there are some existing sub-themes as well. Again, I swear, the slurring of words is just because I'm excited. My brain is going faster than my mouth. So one of the themes is dragons. Targon has like Aurelian Soul listed as one of the champions in it. And it's going to very clearly, at least in my opinion, have dragons show up in other regions, and you're going to have these kind of like cross themes with some of the other regions, and Demacia makes the most sense because Shyvana is another one of the new champions listed, and it's going to reside in Demacia, right? So when Targon comes out as a region, you can fully expect that it's going to have its own cool primary theme, but it's also going to have this like dragon theme, and it's going to tie very nicely and tie very well with Demacia because of Shyvana and your ability to play Shyvana in combination with the Targon region, right? So when that happens, right, whether it's this expansion or the following expansion, when we get Targon, again, depending on how things are done, it might feel like, hey, we got a Targon and Demacia region and everybody else got a couple of supplemental pieces, right? And I don't know how you get over this hurdle, but it is, just from a design standpoint, for me personally, really interesting to see how they're going to tackle this, both for this first expansion, for the future expansion. Again, we know from kind of data mine stuff, at least what they're thinking about doing in the future. But then, again, pressing forward, because I don't think we're going to stop at 8 regions. I think that we are going to get a Shurima at some point. I think we are going to get Void at some point, and maybe even more. That's the beauty of Runeterra, is that with the League of Legends intellectual property, there's just a lot of really cool lore to build off of, a lot of interesting characters, and that's just from the existing champions we know about. And if Legends of Runeterra has taught us anything, it's that we're getting all these really cool, like, named followers as well along the way. Some of these are people that I hope to see become champions later. I'd love to see Yone pop up as a champion that I could play alongside Yasuo when I'm playing Summoner's Rift, that sort of thing. So anyway, from a design standpoint, I'm just very interested to see how they tackle things going forward, what their cadence is like, how they're introducing new regions, the themes for those regions, how they support old regions. And if you're somebody who knows me from the Elder Scrolls Legends, you probably know exactly why I'm so interested in this, because that was a game where we very often got pretty cool, new, and exciting mechanics every expansion, but then they very rarely got support in future expansions. Now, it doesn't mean they never got support, but it was rare, and that was something that the player base very frequently spoke out about. They said, hey, we want more support for these things that you introduced a year ago, and I want to see Runeterra kind of learn from that, potential mistake. You could argue whether it's a mistake or not, but at the end of the day, your players were giving pretty vocal feedback about that, so many of them felt like it was a mistake, and we'll see if Runeterra addresses it. So anyway, that's the news. No gameplay today, but we're going to have gameplay coming back here in the near future. I'm obviously going to be covering the reveals and announcements as we get closer to the new expansion. If you know me, then this is, for me, the most exciting time in any card game, which is, reveals, right? As new cards get revealed, you get to speculate, talk about the ways that it can be used. Will it be good? Will it not be good? All that stuff is, it's just fun, right? It's the card game equivalent of like sports talk radio, when you have a big game and everybody is talking about like who's going to win, who's not going to win. Here's the reasons why I think, this, team is going to win. All that stuff that goes into like good sports talk radio, where at the end of the day, it's all speculation. That's what reveal season is to me for card games. And I don't know, I love it. I'm a big cheese ball, but it is what it is. So anyway, if you made it this far, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I want to know, which region do you think we're going to get? Do you think it's Bilgewater? Do you think it's Targon? What champions are you excited for? Again, we have a rough idea of what to expect coming champion-wise in this expansion just because of the data mining done before. Again, I'm tired of saying this, but link to that previous video will be in the video description if you have not seen it. But I want to know, who you're excited for. What region do you think we're going to get? What support do you think we're going to get for existing themes and sub-themes for the existing regions? What do you think the new regions themes are going to be? So whether it's Bilgewater or whether it's Targon, do you think we're going to get some brand new keywords, brand new mechanics? Are they going to give us a interesting twist on a familiar mechanic? Now's the time to have fun, speculate, throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks. But thanks for watching, and hopefully I will catch you watching future videos as we all get hyped for the official launch and our first expansion in Runeterra.